Time for Ray Maxwell in Maxwell's house. Ray's always all over the place. We're going to talk about all sorts of things from special effects from the 60s to why the internet isn't everywhere it ought to be. We'll even take calls via Twalkin. And the Boeing Dreamliner takes flight. It's all ahead with Maxwell's house.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Maxwell's house is brought to you by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com. This is Maxwell's House with Ray Maxwell. Episode 52 for December 19th, 2009. Dreamliner. So it's time for Maxwell's House, the show that covers whatever the hell's going on in Ray Maxwell, in the mind of Maxwell. Ray Maxwell is a color scientist, a brilliant photographer, a Photoshop guru, a glider pilot, a regular pilot, a radio expert. I don't know what he doesn't know, and today we're going to talk about a variety of things. But before we began, we were talking about speech patterns in Vox, and I thought that was kind of interesting. You used to be a ham?
I was a ham radio operator, and today I've got one of my antique rigs setting behind me, and the Vox was voice-operated transmit, so you would speak and it would turn to transmit automatically as soon as you started speaking into the microphone, and as long as you didn't pause too long, it would stay in transmit, and then when you paused or stopped speaking, it would switch back to receive. And so amateur radio operators got in the habit of going, and now
just to keep one-niner. You can hear pilots do that too. Niner,
yeah, right.
And we were talking, and I mentioned Vox, there is a, and so you have that vocal inflection, I guess, that habit. Yeah.
I'm trying to get rid of it for the show.
I don't think you want to get rid of that.
But when there's a microphone in front of me, I subconsciously revert to that mode.
You become the ham that you are.
There I am.
The story I wanted to tell, and I know you know this, was the landing of Apollo 11. Because they used Vox-activated microphones for the astronauts, so until they said something or made a sound, the mic wouldn't come on. And Neil Armstrong swears that he said that's one small step for a man, one giant step for mankind. But, of course, all we heard was one small step for man, which doesn't make quite as much sense, does it?
That's right. And he paused there in his speech, and then the A got clipped by the Vox.
That's what he says, although...
Who knows?
Who knows really what happened? But I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. I mean, come on. He's Neil Armstrong. Anything he says goes in my book.
First man on the moon. What the heck?
And humble and normal and down-to-earth, pretty amazing fella.
Right.
Yep.
And he didn't punch anybody out when they said that it was all fake.
Although, I can't blame Buzz for that too much. I
don't either.
Really.
I would have loved to have been there to witness that one.
That was a funny moment. Well, you can on YouTube.
Yeah. Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'll check it out.
Oh, you can see it all. Nothing these days. Nothing happens that doesn't get on YouTube.
I love it.
Yeah.
Just as I signed on today, Leo, I noticed I got a note from Canon. There's a firmware update for the 5D Mark II.
Another one, and I don't think I've applied the first one yet. I gotta get to work. Here it is. Here's Buzz Aldrin.
One who said you walked on the moon when you didn't. Calling the kettle black, if I ever thought of it. Saying I misrepresented myself. Away from me. You're a coward and a liar and a thief.
Ooh, ooh, and bye-bye. Oh.
I think the coward and a liar was the...
yeah. He says, you didn't walk on the moon, you're a coward and a liar, up to Buzz Aldrin. I would have popped him one, too.
Right.
Holy cow.
That's pretty outrageous behavior.
Shocking.
To call someone like that. Anyway.
It reminds me of these global warming people. They're people who just get it in their head that something's a hoax, and they will not listen to reason. And this guy obviously doesn't believe we walked on the moon. It's probably the same people. It's the truthers. And, you know, you can't argue with somebody who just says, no, didn't happen.
Precisely.
You cannot prove the negative.
Yeah.
All right. Now let's move on.
All righty. One of the things I wanted to talk about today is, have you seen Bill Atkinson's app that he wrote for the iPhone?
No. What did he
Well,
write?
if you go on iTunes and look up Bill Atkinson's, it's called PhotoCard. And I think it's a very clever little app for your iPhone. What it allows you to do is you start up that app, and it allows you to write a postcard. And it has the postcard-looking format, and you put one of your own pictures, or one of Bill has in the app a whole selection of his beautiful nature photographs. And so you can choose one of his, or you can put one of your own photographs, one that you just shot in your iPhone. You can put on the postcard, and then you can email it right from the iPhone directly to your friends or whatever on any normal email, and they'll get both sides of the postcard in the email. Or alternatively, I think it's for a fee of $2, you can hit another button in the application, and it sends to a company who will print that card and mail it for you.
That's cool.
Yeah.
$5 for the app.
Yeah.
Now, did we say who Bill Atkinson is? Do people know
No,
who he
we
is?
didn't, but we should.
We really should, because if you use a Macintosh, thank Bill Atkinson.
That's right. He wrote the original graphics software for the Mac Plus called QuickDraw, and that's the operating system software. And then he also did Mac Paint for the thing, and he also did HyperCard, and he's done a number of other things. He's a very, very influential and very knowledgeable color scientist, because he was originally trained as a neuroscientist, and before he went into writing software and working for Apple. And now he spends most of his time doing nature photography, has his own website. I think it's just BillAtkinson.com, isn't it?
That's a good question. I don't know. We interviewed him on the, I think the 35th anniversary of Apple Computers, or the 30th anniversary,
Right.
30th anniversary of Apple Computers. And I just admire this guy so much. And I know you've wanted to get him on the show, and I've been trying, and I haven't found a way to reach him, but it's BillAtkinson.com. I would really love to get him on the show. So if anybody knows Bill, just let him know that Ray and Leo are looking for him.
We're promoting his app and his website. Come talk to us.
PhotoCard's pretty cool. I think that's a really neat idea.
Isn't
I'm
that
glad
a
he's
cute
still
idea?
writing software. I think that's great.
Yeah. And the interface is very nice. It's very easy to use, and I really like it. When you're out traveling, you want to send a little quick note to a friend. You can do it via email, or you can actually have it printed. Your choice.
Neato.
Yeah, I really like that. Now, next on my agenda, I found a very interesting note in the news about LED traffic lights, and that they have a problem. Did you read this?
I did not. I'm seeing them everywhere.
Yeah, you're seeing them everywhere. But they're having problems in Canada, Minneapolis, Chicago.
Cold places.
Cold places with blowing snow.
Okay.
You see, the old traffic lights, when the lights were on, produced heat.
They'd melt the snow.
They would melt the snow that collected in those shades around the light, and the LEDs don't produce enough heat, and the light gets covered up with the snow, and you can't see the light.
Who would have thunk? So now they're going to have to put little filaments in there to warm up the light.
Yeah, and of course the whole object of doing them was to save power.
Yeah.
You win some, you lose
It's
some.
it's hard to think of everything.
That's right. But I guess, we've got to redesign the shades or whatever so the snow doesn't get caught in them.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah, I thought that was a interesting downside to the whole thing.
Who'd have thunk it?
Right. And then I was also reading in the news, I mentioned on the show several times that I think possibly the next, wars will not be over oil or something, but maybe over water. And I was reading an article about Egypt is its entire source of fresh water, as I understand it, comes from the Nile and irrigation from the Nile. And the water out of the glaciers of Africa that feed the Nile are receding and slowing down. There's not as much water due to global warming again coming down the Nile, and the countries upstream are damming and blocking the Nile so that they can preserve the water for themselves. Mm-hmm. And Egypt is getting upset over this.
You know, when I was in Egypt about, I guess, a couple of Christmases ago, one of the things that really concerned me is that, you know, the whole country is desert except for the area bordering the Nile. So the entire population of Egypt is on this thin strip that borders the Nile. Mm-hmm. And the population of Egypt is growing at 100,000 people a month, 1.2 million a year.
Wow.
And you just can tell, you can just see the population pressure. Of course, everybody moves to Cairo, where there are already, I think, 8 or 9 million. It's a gigantic city, maybe more than that. And you could just see the problems coming in this area. And not just water, but water is the chief resource they're going to be stressed by.
Mm-hmm. And you know, that brings me to one of my favorite topics, but it's a delicate topic. And that is, you know, we can talk about pollution, we can talk about global warming, we can talk about renewable energy and all of this, but the bottom line is population. If we continue to grow our world population, there's a limit. And anyone with an ounce of brains can realize there are finite amount of resources here on this little blue marble. And if we just keep growing our population, we're going to be in trouble. Now, all you have to do is raise the standard of living to a certain level and empower women. You know, this has been shown by a number of projects in developing countries where they have done these microloans. And if you empower the women, make them financially independent, the population levels off real quickly. And but one of our problems here in North America is we have an economy built on continuous growth.
You know, we had a great economist on Kiki's show. I don't know if you saw that, who was talking about something that I had never heard of, but this notion of sustainable growth, or in fact, no growth. His point exactly was that we just, it's kind of assumed in all economic models of the resources for.
All you have to do is study pyramid schemes, and you know there's a point where, and guess what? That's what our economy is based on, this pyramid scheme. And when we hit the limits of the resources that we have, we're going to pay. You know, we're going to destroy the earth, or the earth is. You know, he was worried about all this, and I said, no, you're wrong. I said, we aren't. The earth will correct itself.
Yeah.
But if we don't...
we may not be around to enjoy it. It may be correcting itself for the cockroaches.
That's right. I mean, we can either use our brains and think ahead and project and use logical, rational, scientific modeling and figure out, you know... Now, is that 100% accurate? No, particularly in this global warming thing. Is any model that's doing it absolutely accurate? No. And I couldn't find the piece of news. Did you see where there was some emails found where two scientists were kind of cooking the books or something on this topic? Did you hear about that?
Are you joking? This has been the _1 story in U.S. media for the last 3 weeks. They call it, just Google ClimateGate.
Okay, ClimateGate. Well, I don't know what okay, I'll.
So the deal is, it's the University of Anglia in England, which is one of the big climate science universities. By no means the only one, not
right.
But and somebody hacked the emails and collected all the emails. So first of all, this is, you know, it's obviously a criminal act. And then what's unfortunate, whenever you see coverage on it, they just show completely out of context the little things like tricked. You know, they show the word tricked. They don't show the rest of the email. They just show the word tricked, or we'll have to change these numbers. And so if you just saw that coverage, your natural assumption would be, oh boy, they're fudging the numbers. But Scientific American, go to Scientific American's website. They have a very, very good I think, 7 responses to climate warming contrarians, and they do address ClimateGate. And look, the problem is these scientists were writing for other scientists about issues having to do with data that scientists talk about and think about all the time. That these things can be taken out of context to sound like they're changing the numbers, they're fudging the numbers, when in fact, if you read the whole email, it's very clear their goal is to get the most accurate numbers,
right?
And to compensate for errors in measurement and things like that.
Adjust factors that they now have better data on, or what have you.
But if you take these lines out of context, particularly for somebody who's not a scientist who is anxious to believe something, that it's ClimateGate. What's sad is that CNN, I think most of the mainstream media is doing this now. It's really pernicious belief in mainstream media that the way you be balanced is by having 2 parties of opposing viewpoints on, and giving them equal weight. And in fact, that's actually not quite accurate. You could, let's say your debate was, is the Earth flat? And you have one scientist who says, no, it's very clearly round. We have measurements. We have pictures from space. We know for many reasons it's round. And then you have some guy, some English lord, let's say, who says, well, no, actually, it's very clearly flat. An idiot would know that. And I don't know why. If you give them equal weight, you in some ways give credence to this notion that, well, maybe the Earth is flat, when in fact, they are not equal. And this is exactly what's happening with ClimateGate, is that they're very carefully trying to balance it, but it's not in any way.
Well, their reporters are not doing their homework, and
they're
doing
very lazy,
deep investigative reporting.
They're very lazy. And some of this comes from this desire to express no point of view, which I'm not a big fan of. I don't think you should be flogging a point of view, but absence of research and absence of mind power can, in a way, flog a point of view, because if you treat flat Earth equally to round Earth because you don't want to take a position, that's not exactly right, No.
If there's a way to test it, we can put forth a hypothesis and use the scientific method and look at the data.
Unfortunately, there are a lot of people who don't have any scientific training or understanding, and these people are, I don't know why they're so anxious. I guess they just, look, it's not a happy conclusion, I guess.
Right.
And so they just don't want to believe it. Here comes Kiki. Hi, Kiki.
Well, hello, Kiki.
She must have heard me say ClimateGate. Boo. Well, we were just talking about it, I mean, I don't know where you get, I don't know where you, I think mainstream media has really dropped the ball on this. And it's too bad. It's the he said, she said reporting is what it is.
Right.
It's a very lazy way of reporting.
You get a guy from the one side of the issue to spin his thing. You get another guy from the other opposite extreme, and they love extreme opinions.
Oh yeah. The more extreme, the better.
The more extreme, the better.
This British Viscount that they've been trotting out at the Copenhagen conference is such an upper class twit. Well, it's very clear. He's not a scientist in any way. He's just a British, he's a House of Lords, don't you know?
Right.
And there's no climate warming. That's quite obvious. Any fool knows that. And they drag this guy out like he is, like he has any standing. He has no standing. Anyway.
But he sounds so
Kiki's a little upset. He sounds erudite.
It's like,
we should do a show on ClimateGate. Yeah. Because what we really need to do is get some scientists to say, look, this is the full text of the email. Here's what they're talking about. Instead of, you see the CNN thing, they show this little window on the email, and they highlight the word trick. And that's all they show. That's it. Oh, it must be a trick. It says trick. Anyway,
precisely.
Don't get me started.
Well, it's just like, you're talking about the Englishman. It's just like years ago. I saw the other night a show on Houdini. And, of course, he debunked spiritualists. But one of his friends was Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who was, the author of Sherlock Holmes.
Right.
And, of course, his character is so rational and logical. But Sir Arthur, I'm afraid, was, into spiritualism 100%. And poor old Houdini tried to stay his friend and tried to show him the error of his ways, and they ended up parting company over it, sadly.
Normally I would just say, oh, screw it, believe what you want to believe. But unfortunately, there's a consequence to just going along doing what we're doing. But what are you going to say? What are you going to do?
So true. Another update from the news. I don't know if you saw Air France Flight 447 that crashed off of Brazil. They're sending the subs back to take another crack at finding the black boxes because they're.
But I thought that the echo locator's off now, right? It's the radio locator.
Yeah, no, the beeper will not be there, but they're still going to search.
Talking about a needle in the haystack. Oh.
Yeah, it's a needle in the haystack, but they really think they need it because they don't have enough information, to have a definitive, probable cause for the accident. On a much more positive note, did you happen to witness the first flight of the Boeing 787 Dreamliner?
I was watching. I didn't see it take off, but I looked at it. It would make me a little nervous. Carbon fiber instead of aluminum. I don't know. I'm a little nervous. This just feels like something that might break up. What was carbon fiber? It's just fibers held together with glue, right?
Resin, yes. Well, if it makes you feel any better, I've been flying carbon fiber gliders for years.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. The Europeans have been building with carbon fiber for a long time. Now, what I found interesting in watching it lift off, and by the way, Boeing had one of our fans sent me a link. Thank you very much. I'm sorry I didn't put your name in the notes, but thank you for sending in the link, and I watched it live, streamed from Boeing. And as it took off, you could see the wings flex, just like a glider wing does. And it also has a very high aspect, very thin wing like a glider. And, of course, the beauty of this airplane is it's much, much lighter and stronger, but it is flexible. And for that reason, it may give you a smoother ride in turbulence. There are active controls to try and damp out the turbulence in the ship, so you will get a smoother ride. It still has we've talked about this. It still has a control wheel and trim controls, but they're expecting up to a 20% savings in gas, in fuel burn, with this ship. So that's very, very significant. If you can save 20% on every flight,
I like it. I like how the airlines are saying, and just think of all the money we'll save you on tickets. Yeah, somehow I doubt we'll have to pay less for that plane.
Right.
Somehow I don't think the plane tickets are going to be cheaper.
Of course, on the other end of things, it's 2 years late, but
right, more than that. It struck me that it was kind of a cock up on Boeing's part, because for the first time they outsourced a lot of parts. They did kind of a just in time thing that didn't work because the suppliers couldn't get the parts in time.
That's right. And get them past all the inspections and so forth, certification. Let me just pass along a little rule of thumb, though, that explains why it's so important to have a highly efficient aircraft. Right now, a aircraft, when it is going to do a flight, by law, by the FAA rules and regulations, and the ICAO as well, it is required to carry enough fuel to take off, climb to altitude, cruise to its destination, descend, shoot an approach at that airport. If it can't land there due to weather minimums, it then has to be able to carry enough fuel to go on to its alternate, and then it has to fly for another 30 or 45 minutes beyond that as well. And then the captain has the option of putting on additional fuel. And in the old days, it wasn't unusual for a captain to throw on another 10,000 pounds over the flight plan fuel. And but here was the rule of thumb I learned when we were doing the computerized flight dispatch business, and writing software to do flight planning. It takes approximately 10% of the you burn 10% of the fuel that you carry to carry the fuel. In other words, if you put on an extra 10,000 pounds of fuel, you will burn an extra 1,000 pounds of fuel that you wouldn't have if you hadn't put it on.
So there's this magnification factor.
Yeah. So you have to, realize, and when fuel was cheap, it really wasn't an issue. And, they would push right up to the highest Mach number they could, which burns more fuel. Now they work a lot harder at trying to fly at optimum altitudes, take into consideration the digital winds, and try and find, best way they can to optimize it. So that's what's happening today. They're flying much more efficiently, but they're still carrying more than an adequate amount of reserve, and the captain always has the option to add more if he thinks there's any other factors that need to be taken into consideration. So, but that was a major breakthrough to see that aircraft fly, because it is a unique and new kind of aircraft made of composites. And one of the other things that I heard years ago, I'm talking about 20 years ago, and I haven't heard whether there's a solution to this or not, but I was told that if you have a carbon fiber aircraft and it crashes and burns at an airport, that the dust from the carbon fiber is highly conductive, and if it gets into electronic equipment, it shorts it out. So if you had an accident at an airport, you might lose all the electronics at the airport.
Well, isn't that jolly?
Now, like I say, I don't know whether it's a different kind of, whether they but early carbon fiber, that was one of the fears. And, like I say, we've been using it in gliders for years, but let's face it, we don't have too many accidents with our gliders, and they're usually not at major airports. And the other thing with gliders, they don't burst into flames from the fuel.
Oh, well, that's good. They have no fuel.
No fuel.
No fuel.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
I worry because it feels like carbon fiber might be more prone to breaking up. I know the stresses on a jumbo jet must be fierce.
But it's very, very strong. It's designed with a tremendous...
In both axes, is it strong? I mean, it's...
Yeah, and it's designed with a great deal of safety factor in any of these things. Their safety factors are at least 150% and sometimes 200%. In other words, they design the system for all the expected turbulence and stresses and strains and altitude changing and pressurization and all that, and then they will multiply that design load by at least 150% to get the strength of the materials that they need.
They're saying in the chat room it's as strong as aluminum. Is it as strong as aluminum?
Yes, for per weight it's stronger.
Per weight.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it's not meaningful to me.
It's stronger. It's stronger. It's stronger.
Okay.
Well, but what it means is if you build a plane lighter, it's just as strong as if it was built out of aluminum and heavier.
Okay.
Does that?
Yeah, but I don't really measure my safety by weight. I'm just saying, is a carbon fiber plane going to?
It's very strong. Some of the aerobatic ships I've flown are carbon fiber.
They use it in space, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they use it in all kinds of things.
All sorts of things. And my tennis racket.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
My bike.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
My implants. No, I'm sorry. Those are titanium.
Are we getting any calls in on the line?
Oh, of course we are. I didn't even think. Let me check it out here. Let me go over to Twalkin. If people want to call in or ask a question, you know what I didn't do, and this probably would slow down the Twalkin calls, is put the number up. So let me do that first.
Okay.
And then I'm sure we will have calls. In fact, love to hear from anybody who wants to talk about global warming, carbon fiber,
airplanes, gliders, hot air balloons.
You have to have an account with Twalkin to do that, because it has to know your number for me to see your name. And let me give you the phone number so you guys can call in. I have it. Yeah, right. There's 5 Twalkers, and if I see Hernari, if you're ready to go on the air, I'll go on the air with you in a moment, Hernari. But let me give you the phone number for everybody else to call us, and you just use a regular phone. And you'll be able to hear our audio. Call us via Twalkin. And you can also use the Twalkin iPhone app if you want. 218-588-4200. 548-9255, and the PIN number is 1304, followed by the pound sign. So there is a Twalkin number if you would like to call in.
Super.
But you need to have it works best if you have you can call in and listen, but if you have a Twalkin account, then we'll see your name, and that's kind of what we would like to see so that we can pick up on you. But let's just see. Let's just see if this is working. I'm going to pick up on right now on her. Is it her Nari?
Well, Leo, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Basically, this goes back to my email in college where they use the last 6 of my last name and the first 2 letters of my first name.
So your
name
name is?
That as Richard Hernandez.
Richard Hernandez.
Right now, I'm using this iPhone app right now.
Hey, it sounds great. There's a little delay. Really the delay is coming from Google Voice, I think, because I've found that the Google Voice will sometimes add a little delay. But the sound quality is fantastic. We hear you great.
And especially on this end, too. It sounds fantastic. And especially with the Twalkin app, it's very, very easy.
Yeah. Yay! We finally found a way to make calls work. So any thoughts about what we've been talking about, Richard?
Definitely. It's mostly this more question on the aviation side. About a little bit before Thanksgiving, on the news they said there was massive delays because the computer that logs the flight plans either broke. I remember that Ray talked about this a little bit before, saying, this is a potential failure point with the whole flight system. I was wondering if Ray maybe got any updates to see exactly what caused this problem, because I'd never heard a follow-up on the news.
I haven't. I didn't get a follow-up. I have a source that I can go to and I can get all the details, but because a friend of mine who works in the industry, and he follows all of these, and I'll see if I can't get an update. I don't know the exact root cause of that, but yeah, it's definitely one of the weak spots, and with all the regulations and with all the approval processes, it's very, very slow to update the procedures and/or the equipment that handles that sort of thing.
It's a funny weak link because it doesn't seem like it'd be too crucial, and yet if you can't file a flight plan, you're not going to know where you're going or where you are, right?
Right. And ATC, well, there's a whole bunch of things now with the security. You have to file separately with a bunch. If you cross a border, you have to file with Customs. You have to file with Homeland Security. These are all separate computer actions. You have to file a flight plan with air traffic control, and so forth. So, the government agencies don't talk to each other. It would seem sensible to me that that you'd be able to contact one computer and it would disseminate all your information to all of the agencies involved. But that's not the way it works at this time. You have to have separate pieces of software and file separate notices for a flight across the border with at least 3 agencies.
In triplicate.
Yeah, right.
Richard, it's great to talk to you. I'm so glad you called in and this worked so well. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I like being the inaugural call on Maxwell's house.
You were the inaugural call.
You were it. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Where are you calling from? Where you live?
Manhattan.
Manhattan.
Manhattan. I visited Dick that one time, and also the Twit Cottage, too.
Oh, yeah, of course. I know who you are. Sure. Are you still a student, or are you out of school now?
I'm out of school.
That's great. Well, it's really nice to meet you.
Likewise. So hopefully you can do this more often so I can call in.
We will.
A great technology.
We will. Now that you got it on the iPhone, we'll absolutely have you on again.
We'll do it.
Let's take a couple more. We got the Gnome on the line. Hi, Gnome.
Hey, Leo. This is Josiah calling from Central Ohio, Newark.
Very nice to meet you, Josiah. Thank you so much for calling in.
Hey, before I say something, I was just going to just take a quick thanks to you. I'm applying to college now and everything, and I know your daughter is as well. And you, if it wouldn't have been for your shows in these last couple of years, I don't think academically I'd be where I am. You've really inspired me to achieve more through what you've done here. And let's face it, listening to Twit makes you a smarter person. So
wow, I'm moved. That's really amazing. So you're a high school
trying to get into Dartmouth, and if not Dartmouth, another great college in Central Ohio called Kenyon.
Oh, yeah, Kenyon's a great school.
Is recruiting they're recruiting me for football, so I hope to be at one of these schools next year, and you are a huge part of that.
Josiah, that is so nice. I'm moved to tears. That is really wonderful. Good luck in your college search. I know this is a very stressful thing. Abby applied to Brown early admission and got denied, and it was a hard thing for her. She's now going through all the applications.
I applied ED to Dartmouth as well and got deferred, so I might get accepted there. Hey,
deferred's not bad. Deferred's good, Josiah. We got our fingers crossed for you. So that means you go through the regular process now?
Yeah, I'm in on a regular decision now, so I'll find out. And if not, I'll probably get accepted either Cornell or Kenyon's already recruiting me for football, so I'm excited.
Kenyon's a great school. I know Kenyon very well. That's an excellent school, yeah. Oh, that's great, Josiah.
Anyways, I was just going to make a quick note. You guys living out there in California and everything is compared to I've lived my whole life in Central Ohio, Wisconsin, Minnesota, the Midwest here. And the Internet access out here is just, not the same as it is there. And it's such a huge prohibitor to technological growth that in the very center of the United States, there's nothing. I just happen to be fortunate enough that there's like a fiber line that runs practically right outside my door, so we get Time Warner cable here so I can get the high speed and everything. But for a majority of people living in Ohio and all the Midwestern states, they're lucky to get dial-up, and almost everybody I know gets nothing. In my school district, which is a rural school district, there's just no high-speed internet access available to a huge number of students, and the school, which does have a good internet connection, it's practically just whitelisted a few sites, and that's all there is. So it's just your programming is so amazing, what you're doing, like with the digital streaming now for television and stuff, but, it's like I'm one of the only people in my whole area that can even access that content.
Yeah,
living in a rural area in the Midwestern United States.
I completely.
It's time for Mac Break Weekly, episode 171, with our special guest, Peter Krogh. That damn Peter.
Sorry about that. Turn that off. YouTube started.
Of course, I believe Obama is trying to propose a program today, to increase high-speed internet across the U.S.
It's something I have felt very strongly about for several years. In fact, I've talked many times on the radio show. I think a lot of people don't know how bad it is. And first of all, you have to accept the premise that high-speed internet is a crucial thing, that you need it. I'm not sure I'd say it's a human right, as some do. Finland declared it a human right. But I do think that it's important to participate in this economy, in this world. You need high-speed internet nowadays. Admittedly, I have a little bit of an axe to grind here, because without high-speed internet, you can't consume the content that we make. But it's really separate from that. And I've advocated for a kind of a rural internetification, just like rural electrification in the 20s, and things like the Tennessee Valley Authority, which really took a lot of government money and electrified homes that weren't electrified. And I think it's akin to that.
I'm a pretty diehard conservative when it comes to spending money and everything, like most of the people in central United States are. But I think this is the one time when it's to the benefit of the United States, if we want to move forward into the future, to have this done and to spend a little bit of money on it now. How can we expect to compete, the students of the future in the United States, when they can't even research things on the internet or get access to those people who live in other countries, other ideas? How can we expect? It's no wonder that we're 20th, or whatever, ranked in education here.
And I understand. I mean, I don't want the government to spend money or regulate a lot of things, but this is one area where you're not going to get private industry to do it. It's just not economically viable, because the areas that aren't getting wired just don't have dense enough populations to make it viable. So it's only going to be through government investment in infrastructure that this is going to happen. And I think that that's exactly what a federal government does. It builds highways, it electrifies, it builds dams, it does these kinds of infrastructure investments that are good for the country. I think that that's, you can argue that a federal government should be limited, but if you accept the notion of a federal government, there are a few things that absolutely it needs to do, because no one else is going to do it. Can't, the free market will not serve everything. Yeah.
Final point, here's the problem, is that the people have not been educated to technology, I don't think, as much as, like California, some of these eastern states, western states, where people are much more technologically literate. They know they need this. The people out here in the Midwestern United States don't yet know that they need it, because they've never had it. and people don't understand why they need 15 megabits a second internet, or why they need 3G cell phone coverage, because they never had it, and they say, you know, why do we need it? They don't understand this is how you're going to shop and communicate and watch television and talk on the phone, and everything you do now is going to be consolidated into this one package in the future. And I think education is the key to how this is going to get done, because the people who do have it, you know, underutilize it. Like they say, like people use 1% of their 225 gigabyte bandwidth cap. People aren't using the internet to what it could be. They aren't streaming your show on the Roku box because they just don't know how, and there's a huge barrier there. And that's my final point. It's education. I don't know what's the best way to do that.
Well, I have some personal experience in this area. My 93-year-old father lives in a small town in Missouri called Nevada, Missouri. That's spelled like the state of Nevada, but the locals pronounce it Nevada. And up until a couple of years ago, I could get no wideband access there, and I wanted to be able to teleconference with my father. And I also can completely remotely control. I have a fixed IP address on his computer, and so I can completely remote control his computer and do maintenance and upgrade the software and everything. And now I teleconference with him by Skype, but we have a DSL line. And in my hometown of Nevada, Missouri, as far as I know, I checked earlier, the cable company does not have any internet services. And the only way you can get a, you know, moderately wideband 1.5 megabit connection in there is through DSL and the telephone company, and that's only very recent, and that's right in the heart of, you know, that's right on the Missouri-Kansas border, just south of Kansas City, 100 miles.
And it's like that throughout the whole Midwest. You're lucky to get DSL in almost everywhere I've lived. This is like the first place I've lived in my life where you even have cable access. The United States is still a really rural area for almost the whole country's landmass area.
Well, I noticed that even I might as well. I live in Vancouver, British Columbia, and I'm a dual citizen of the U.S. and Canada. But Canada has more per capita, you know, has more wideband access than the U.S. does, and we're a much more spread out country. But you can go up into the Northwest Territories and get wideband access because they felt that it was important to have it.
Well, we appreciate, Josiah. We appreciate your call and your very kind words. I'm really glad you called, and it's great to talk to you. Good luck with your college search.
Thanks, Leo, and I appreciate what you've guys done, and I'll continue to listen to you throughout college.
That's so neat. It's thrilling to me. That's great.
Thanks for the call. I appreciate it.
Dartmouth has any sense at all. Although Kenyon's a great school. He's got some good choices. He's not.
Yes,
Cornell, nothing to knock there either.
No.
We are running out of time. I have more things on your list, a lot more on your list. Do you want me to show this one video?
Yes, I would love you to, because the National Film Board Canada go about 3 minutes into it.
Okay. Because
what I want to show is this was done in 1968 by Norman McLaren, who was a pioneer in experimental film. And he did things in 1968 that today, if we were doing it digitally, would be fairly easy. But he did this entirely by multiple exposures in film and so forth. And what he did here, I think, is marvelous. And all I wanted to say is there's a National Film Board site that you can go to.
The National Film Board of Canada is a true national treasure.
A pioneer work.
Amazing stuff.
Right.
And you know, I think stuff got made that would never have been made otherwise without the help. And there's another example of a government investment in the arts, and you can argue about whether the government should be investing in the arts or not, but there's things that you just don't get otherwise. This is called Pas de Deux. I guess you could search on the internet for the National Film Board of Canada and find the website. And find
it's just nfb.ca.
nfb.ca.
Yeah.
And we're not going to, I can't jump ahead because it's downloading it. So.
Oh, shucks. Because what I wanted to show you was the effects that he achieved in 1968. And they don't start happening until about 2.5 minutes into the film.
I wonder if this is shot on video or on film.
This was originally done entirely on film. And he did a lot of other experimental work in which he drew on the film.
Oh, interesting.
With pens and ink and whatnot. And it's some real pioneer work. But if you get to the part, here we go.
He's now doubled exposure. So she's dancing with herself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
It gets even more interesting as it goes along. He does more and more special effects. And I think it's a classic. I think it holds up extremely well.
It's very interesting. Yeah. Imagine how do they do that?
Yeah, imagine how you would do this with film. Digital, it's a piece of cake nowadays.
Right.
But
in some ways, it's a shame because we now take stuff for granted that just, would have been so hard.
Right.
In the analog days. Well, that's a good way to end, Ray. We're going to talk again next week. And, of course, Ray's Maxwell House is now a podcast. So the feed is still not on the iTunes, but we do have video of it, and we do have audio of it, and we will put both on twit.tv so you can listen after the fact. And we've got our YouTube channel going as well now. So we will start putting videos up on YouTube so you can either subscribe through YouTube. It won't be as high a quality as you could get if you downloaded them from iTunes or from the website, but YouTube is turning our video into high quality HQ, and it looks pretty darn good. So that's another alternative way to get it. It's youtube.com/twit. And Ray's show will be one of the shows that gets up there very soon.
Oh, super.
Great to talk to you, Ray.
We didn't do the, we're going to stick a sync commercial in.
Oh, that. Yeah, we'll do without sync today. Yeah, okay. But I didn't. I've just run out of time, unfortunately.
Right.
We've got Kiki, and we've got our holiday special coming up in an hour with John Hodgman and Jonathan Colton and Merlin.
Oh, that'll be fun.
So that's gonna be a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Ray. Thank you so much.
All righty.
We'll fade into Ray. Care. Look, see, we can do these special effects. Ray's now dancing with the dancers. Yeah. We fade into Ray.
Yeah, her partner comes on very shortly, and then really strange things start happening.
Oh, here he comes. Oh, boy.
Yeah, but it was way ahead of its time. Look it up. Have a look at it. It's fantastic. All right, Leo. Thanks. We'll see you.
Thank you, Ray. We'll see you next time on
All
Maxwell's.
Right.